Britain has finally done what many other film-producing countries had done many years before. From January the 2nd, 1992, the announcement was made that a new film commission had been set up and was ready for business. Financed by the government, the British Film Commission is attempting to draw American and European film production into the UK by persuading the foreign filmmaker to use British locations, facilities and technical services, an area of the UK industry that has been running at an all-time low since the late 80s. I went down to the Commission's London headquarters in Baker Street and spoke to Sidney Samuelson, the Commission's director. I asked him what the British Film Commission was and what it actually hoped to achieve.
What the British Film Commission is, actually, is a marketing operation. We are marketing a product that we have. That product is the United Kingdom and all its backgrounds, many of which are completely unique. We have a set of background buildings that have taken at least 1,000 years to put in place. We have the best technical infrastructure anywhere in the world, bar none. Part of our job is to create awareness of just what we have on offer in this country, and it's a promotional organisation. It is providing services to producers from abroad at no charge. What I describe as our function is oiling wheels and cutting tape in some respects.
Are you there, Dave? Ready, leader. It's all right, is it? All right, boys, nice work. You've had your look. Keep up the engage on his head course for home.
That was taken from the highly acclaimed Associated British Picture Corporation's film The Dam Busters, made in 1954. The post-war period in which it was made marked the heyday in British film production, and indeed until the late 60s, when box office takings worldwide began to decline rapidly, the UK industry was able to support itself on successes in the home market. From that time onwards, however, it was realised that with the growing costs in production and marketing, films had to be global. Studios were no longer simply in-house facilities used to make pictures for the companies who owned them. Instead, studios now had to advertise themselves to any films about to start production. This meant that there were more studios trying to get less work and long periods of downtime. One answer was to go four-wall, which effectively meant cutting the workforce in areas of production down to nil and simply retaining a bare minimum administration staff, cutting the studio's overheads by 80%. I spoke to Andrew Mitchell, who took over the running of Elstree in 1972, and was largely responsible for introducing the four-wall system there. Why do you think that the Americans have stopped making films in this country at the moment?
I think there are two reasons. One, the kind of films the Americans were making at that time were what we call construction films, like Indiana Jones, like Star Wars, like Superman, like Batman. All of those films require an enormous amount of construction. I can only quote George Lucas, who says that he thinks the craftsmen in Britain are the best in the world. What he didn't say, of course, is they're also 30% cheaper than the craftsmen in America. And so if you're doing a construction film, it's much cheaper to make it in Britain, which is why most of the Americans came over.
Now, in terms of British investment into films, that stopped sort of in the mid-70s. What really marked that change?
The main time that films were being financed in Britain was really right up to the end of the 60s, when ABPC was still acting as a production company, and so was Rank. When ABPC sold out to EMI and then Thorn EMI, production went down enormously. And in fact, most of the films that were financed by Thorn EMI were actually made in America to try and pick up the American market without, I may say, any success whatsoever.
Do you think that the British film industry will eventually become more of a service industry?
Yeah, I think it'll be the same as it was in the 70s, basically. 70s and 80s, where it was purely a service industry.
I spoke to Geoffrey Hermiges, a veteran of the British film industry, who runs Effect, a film course operating in the Working Man's College in Mornington Crescent, whether he thought this would compromise the sense of cultural identity in the work of young British filmmakers, and how important this was.
Well, that is a very all-embracing question. The answer, of course, is that at the moment, with the new British Film Commission and a lot of interest in the last 2 or 3 days in Parliament on film, it has been said that there is not a world market for British, in quotes, films. If we are tied to purely commercial considerations to what will sell, British film will die.
Do you think this is going to be quite damaging to the sort of cultural aspect of British films?
Yes, I do. Last year, the British film features made, I think, 12 features. We've lost our studio capacity, and we have lost any sense of having a completely British film industry. Our cameramen, of which I'm one, will work abroad. People will go to America, particularly to some other countries, if they are going to work on feature films.
So, is there a danger that British filmmakers' work will no longer reflect their national heritage if they can only find foreign money to finance their productions? Or has the era when a film reflecting only one nation's cultural experience ended? Certainly the world is a smaller place. Maybe the British film community will be forced to accept the end of a totally British film.
Crucifixion?
No, freedom.
Huh?
What? Freedom for me. They said I hadn't done anything, so I could go free and live on an island somewhere.